Forgot to restart my recording. So you have your bank account. So you got your PPP subaccount. We've attached it to a bank account. Hit save and close, and you'll notice that the checking account, right below the checking account. Let me enlarge this a little bit so I can see it better. You'll see the checking account, and below it there's a PPP subaccount, and then we have this PPP checking. Now you're going to only have one of these. If you have a separate bank account, you'll have the PPP checking. If you don't have a separate bank account, you're going to have a PPP subaccount. All right. So now the next thing we've got to do is we've got to set up some other general ledger accounts and the charter accounts, namely the loan, because the PPP is a loan until it's forgiven. So we're going to go new, and now we're going to set up a long-term liability account. You can leave it as a note payable. We're going to call this PPP loan. And then we hit save and close. Now the other account we need to set up is the forgiveness account, because we're hoping all this money will be forgiven. So we're going to hit new, and we're going to set up a other income account, because it has to be other income account, because if you put it as an income account, it's going to show up at the top of your P&L. If it's an other income account, it will show at the bottom of your P&L, and that's what you want. We're going to select this as other miscellaneous income, and then change this to PPP loan, especially you got to spell it right, loan forgiveness. Okay, and you hit save and close. So now we've got all our accounts that we need to set up correctly. All right, so our next thing we've got to do, if you're using the desktop version of QuickBooks, or you're using the online version of QuickBooks, it's either the Plus or the Advanced online version, there's something called class tracking that's built into it. If you're on the desktop version, you have to go into preferences and set it up through there. There's a little button you click. I'm going to show you how to set it up on the online version, even though there's not a lot of people here on the online version. But so you would go up to the little gear here, go down to your accounts and settings, and again on the desktop it'd be under preferences. You go down to advanced, go down to categories. Let's try that again. Go to advanced, go down to categories, and you click on the little button that says track classes. If you're currently using classes in your software, in other words, you're using it to track other stuff, you can't use it for tracking PPP because it'll mess up the rest of your class tracking. You can also use what they call track locations. I'm going to click both of these on. You're not going to use both of them. You're only going to use one, but I'm just doing both of them so you kind of see what's going on. So we hit save, and then we close that. So the next thing, since we've set up this class tracking, again, if you're using the Simple Start version of QuickBooks, this is not available in QuickBooks, so you just have to kind of ignore this part of the equation. But I'll show you another way that you can get to the information a different way. So the next thing we got to do, and again, desktop version, you just have to find the menu item, is you go to all list, and it's going to show you the list of things, and we're looking for classes. And then this is the list of classes, which we have none right now. So we're going to click on new and basically put in PPP loan. So it gives us a class of PPP loan. Okay, we're also going to go back to list and go to locations. Again, you're not going to do both of these. Only do this if you're using classes already and you can't use it again. Because we're going to use PPP loan and hit save. All right, so now we're set up with all this stuff. So now we're kind of like ready to go to the next step, which is we're ready to make some deposits into our bank account. So we received $50,000 of a PPP loan. So I'm going to start off with basically saying the money came to you today. So we're going to go ahead and try to put it in today's money deposit. So we're basically just going to go up to new and go to bank deposit. And you're going to ignore the stuff here because it doesn't matter. So if you're depositing $50,000 into your separate bank account, which is your PPP checking account, you'd select that. If you're depositing $50,000 into your regular checking account, you're going to check that. You do not use the sub account we just set up because the money is actually physically going into the checking account. So we're going to put checking here. The date, you want to make sure that you put the date that's actually being deposited. And that money, that date will change when you finally get the money from the bank because you'll match the deposits and you'll use the money that's actually deposited into your account. Because some people get checks and some people actually got electronic deposits. You still want to put it in here even if it's electronic deposit because you want to match it up. So in this case here, received from, you can put the bank's information, but the most important is down here where it says account. So in the account, you want to list PPP loan, not loan forgiveness, PPP loan. It's the long-term liability account because you're booking this as a loan. And under description, if you want to put PP loan, you can. Payment method, reference number, you can leave it blank if you want. We're going to put $50,000. And under class, you'll see there's a PPP loan. We're going to list that. So from here, we just hit save and close. So now you've deposited the money into your account. I'll just show you real quick the way it looks. And if we go to balance sheet, as of today, you'll see our checking account has $51,201. Okay, 50 of that is deposit, 1,201 is the rest of it. If you scroll down here, you'll see the PPP loan has been booked under long-term liabilities for $50,000. So now what we got to do is the next step is we have to transfer the money. If you're using the sub account, we need to transfer the money from the checking account to our sub account. So then we just go back in and hit transfer. We transfer it from our checking account to our PPP sub account for $50,000. And this is not physically changing anything because everything's included in the sub account is in the checking account. So this is strictly just for bookkeeping reasons that we're doing this. So you don't physically have to do any transfer. All right, so now you'll notice the balance sheet is now changed to show our checking account has 1,201 in it. Our PPP sub account has 50,000. And then of course our PPP loan still has $50,000 in it. So we're still set rolling like we were before. All right, does anybody have any questions? Ask away, and we seem to be rolling pretty good here.
Tom, yes, we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first one is, and I was kind of waiting for you to get to the point where we have the original amount booked on there. We have a question regarding that there's someone who is a sole proprietor member, LLC, and they normally take draws for their income from the business. How do I do this in QuickBooks so that I meet the record requirements? Are draws to owners authorized to qualify for PPP forgiveness? And I had answered the forgiveness amount is set to for 8/52 of the week, but of your net profit that's on Schedule C. But he would like to see how you would record that in QuickBooks.
So what I recommend is that you write yourself a physical check, and on the check itself, write on there owner's draw. So the way you would do that, you would just write a check, which we're getting ready to cover right now. We're going to show how to pay expenses. So we're going to, let me do the other expenses first, and then I'll show the owner's draw as we're doing it. So let's say we're now ready to pay some bills, and I'm going to include an owner's draw as one of them. So let's just say you're going to pay your telephone bill. So we set up, since we did not set up a separate checking account, we want to set up, use the PPP checking sub account as our bank account. Okay. Everything else is the same. Under category, we're just going to do just like we typically would do if we're paying a bill. In this case here, it's gas and electric. If you want to put under here PPP expense, you can. Okay. Under class, you're going to put PPP loan. Under amount, let's just say it's $150. Okay. Under location, again, you're going to use either location or class for this particular. I have both of them listed just so I can show you how it works. But you're either going to use loan or class. And again, if you're using Simple Start, this doesn't work. But everything else it works with. So we're going to record this one. I'm going to hit Save and New. And let's just do a couple other ones. Let's just say we're doing gas and oil. Again, we're going to use PPP checking subaccount. We're going to put PPP expense, $185. We're going to put under here PPP loan. The PPP loan location is still there. We're going to hit Save and New. And let's just do one more. Make sure your date is correct too. One is if you're paying bills, make sure they're within the period of time that you're supposed to be forgiven in. We're going to put Cigna Healthcare since this is a personnel expense. And we're going to put insurance. And I'll put PPP expense. Amount, let's just say it's $1,000. Class is PPP loan. We hit Save and New. So we're kind of putting together some expenses here. I'm going to do one more than the other one. So we're going to have a landlord, which I'm just going to add a topic landlord. And since rent's forgiven, we're going to put rent, PPP expense. We're going to say that's $1,500. Again, class, PPP loan, Save and New. All right, so the question about the owner's draw is we're going to put in here Joe Doe, because he's the owner. So Joe Doe is going to be the payee. In this case here, we're looking for, and I don't know if it's even set up because I wasn't looking for it. Let me see here. Okay, so there's not an account, so we're going to set one up here. And people do it different ways. I'm going to do it the way you're supposed to do it, which means it's an owner's draw is an equity account. Actually, I'm going to do it both ways because I'm going to show you the difference between. I'm going to do it both ways to show you how you've got to be careful where it shows up correctly. The key is making sure you select that class. All right, we're going to do Joe again. In this case here, we're going to set up another account that's actually an expense account. Not the correct way to do it, but it's sometimes easier to track. So we're going to put that under let's put it under cost of labor. Okay. Oh, can't name the same thing. All right, so this case here, we're going to do $600, and you'll see the difference when we actually print it off. Okay, so we've added a bunch of expenses here, and you saw how you did your owner's draw. If you run this off, you'll see the owner's draw section. There's an owner draw down here for $500. So that's associated with the PPP. Now, the only way to make that work is that you would have to customize your report, which will show you how to do the income statement, is to customize it by class. And then it will show the PPP loan and the owner's draw in here. Okay, so if you didn't see what I did, I'll redo that. But basically, what you're doing is you're creating a customized, once you run your report, sure everybody knows how to run a balance sheet or income statement, is there's a customized button, and you can filter by class, customer, vendor, location, etc. So I could do the same thing by location. It's going to give me the same result. And I'm just going to pick that it's a PPP loan. And then this is the balance sheet side of the equation. It's going to show the loan, and it's going to show the draw. Now, we're going to do the same thing by doing a report, except we're going to do it in the profit and loss statement. We're going to run the report from the period that we're going to say that the loan started on April 6th. In 56 days, let's say 7th. And it ended on 6/4. Let's just say it ended today. Okay. So we got all this stuff. This is our profit and loss statement during a time period. There's all kind of stuff in there. And your stuff for your PPP is all mixed in with all this stuff here. So if we go to customize and then we go down to where it says filter, we just scroll down again to where it says class, and then click on PPP loan and run report. Now you've got a list of only the expenses that occurred in the PPP. So you've got your insurance we entered, you've got your maintenance and repair we entered, you got your rent and lease, and we entered owner's draw here just to show you the difference. This is not technically the way you do it, because an owner's draw is not deductible on your profit and loss statement. But if you want to try to do it to kind of keep track of stuff and all in one place, you could enter it as an expense, and whoever does your taxes will know to draw it, will take it back out and put it in the right place. So this is how you use your program in class tracking to help you figure out what all those expenses are. Once you do that report, you can hit Save Customization, and we're going to just call it PPP Loan, and then save it. So then now if I go under Reports and go under Custom Reports, this report is here already set up for me, so I can pull it up at any time to see what the current situation is. Okay? And the same thing with the balance sheet. If I go into Reports and go into the balance sheet, because I didn't save that one, let's go back and do the customization of, oh, it won't work for that, never mind. So you'll be able to look on your balance sheet and see the PPP Subaccount still has $46,000. So it tells you right now how much money is left that hasn't been allocated to the PPP. Now, if you run payroll, and I can't show you in this because this sample program does not have payroll built into it, you can also allocate all your paychecks to that same PPP Subaccount or to the correct account, and it will start taking these numbers out. And if you're using class tracking, which you can also do in payroll, then it will also show up on that income statement under the class tracking report. So is everybody totally confused so far, or everybody kind of like, yeah, I got it?
Well, I have another question. If they downloaded their bank account and the money was already deposited, and I'm assuming based on this that it was deposited into their regular account, they wanted to know whether they need to go back and make a new deposit to match it to. They typically just classify the transaction, not create deposits to match it to.
Yeah, so we're going to cover that in a second, because under most circumstances, you probably already deposited the money, you probably already spent the money. So everything that we've done ahead of time is still correct. So what we have to do is fix the transactions you've already classified and then reclassify them. So if you have thousands of them, this is not going to be a fun job. If you only have a few of them, then it's not too difficult to do. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, let me go over the forgiveness side of the equation, and then we'll come back to that part. So let's just say you're at the end of the program now, and the bank says, or the SBA says, we're going to forgive 40,000 of your 50,000. Okay, you didn't spend it all the way you're supposed to, so too bad. We're only going to forgive 40,000. So what we're going to do now is go into a journal entry, because that's the easiest way to do it. If you're not familiar with journal entries, that's something you do with the debits and credits and all these scary things that only accountants talk about. But it's really pretty simple to do. If you didn't see what I did, you're just going back up to the new button. And again, if you're on the desktop version, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's under accounting or company or something like that. Is you click on new and you just go over here where it says journal entry. So you're creating a journal entry. Make sure you put the date, the correct date, and make sure it's not defaulted to like December 31st of last year or something. So we're going to first start off with is entering the PPP loan. Okay, so we're going to take a $40,000 debit against that, which basically means we're getting 40,000 of that loan forgiven. And then in the description, you can just say PPP Loan Forgiveness. If you want to enter the location, enter PPP, enter class, make sure you do enter PPP. The next account you're going to do is you're going to shortcut, just type in PPP. You're going to go down to where it says PPP Loan Forgiveness. And it's going to offset that $40,000 entry. And then you just go down here and say save and close. And now in your balance sheet, you'll see, ignore that because we're still spending that money. But if you come down here, you'll see that the PPP loan is now got $10,000 because that's what's actually owed as a long-term liability. We go into reports and go to our custom PPP loan. You will see that it's not showing up. So let me go to the other because I probably did something wrong. But let's go to, oh, I know what I did wrong. I didn't actually do it wrong. I just did it on purpose to show you what you could do wrong. Is you forgot to also enter this little button that says PPP. So you got to make sure it enters class for both of these transactions. Hope you can actually believe I did that on purpose, but okay. So now we go into custom reports and click on that, and hopefully it's correct. It now shows there's an other income item down here for PPP loan forgiveness of $40,000. So that's the $40,000 written off. The $10,000 is in the other part. And here's a list of all your expenses that incurred. Now, this is still for whoever your accountant's doing your tax stuff, is still going to be some issues because if you used up $50,000 worth of expenses and it shows 50,000, you only forgiven 40,000, the accountant's going to have to figure out what 10,000 of this dollar is going to have to be added back into the income statement, because the way it's ruled right now, unless it's changed, it's not on the latest bill. If you're whatever amount you're forgiven, you cannot also take the tax deduction for it, which means you can't count this on your tax return. In other words, you can't double dip into taking free money, but also taking the tax deduction for it. That could change, because Congress has talked about that wasn't what they intended for, but they didn't include it in the last bill, so it makes you wonder whether they were just talking out of both sides of their mouth or not. But regardless, right now, this is the way to, if you do it, you'll be able to keep track of what's going on. All right, so that's kind of the whole system to show you how it works. Now, you mentioned about if, in fact, you've already got the money. So the easiest way to do that is go into banking. And you're going to go into your account here, that your checking account where the money was actually deposited into. So if the money was actually deposited into that account, whoop, let me do one other thing before I forget. If you're using QuickBooks Simple Start, because I think a few people are, the class tracking is not going to work for you. So let me show you real quick before I forget to do that. If you go down to reports again, if you have class tracking or location tracking, you have a much better system to do that. If you don't, then you're out of luck. So we're going to go into standard, we're going to go into balance sheet. And you have this thing called PPP Subaccount. You can click on that dollar amount, and it's going to bring up a transaction report that shows every single transaction that's occurred in that account, and you can print that off as a total of what money's gone in and what money's gone out. So that's one method. The other method is that you can use a report that's called transaction list by vendor. Okay. If you use Simple Start, most of these reports are not going to be here, so just ignore those. The one report that you have available to you is transaction list by vendor. So if you click on that list, and again, make sure you pick the dates of the program, because it's going to pull everything out for the whole year, because it's not knowing what's PPP and what's not. Even though if you've been using PPP in your account descriptions, it'll show it. But this transaction list by vendor will show you everything by account. It doesn't total it, but it shows it by account. So that's another method. So those are two things you can use. All right, so let's get back to banking. So you've got the money, it's already come in. You can go to the bank register. And let's just go down and find something that makes sense. Okay, here's one. Chin's gas and oil. We're going to assume that that's a gas expense or a transportation expense that's deductible. So you can click on that, and it gives you, if you have class tracking, it gives you the capability to say PPP loan, or if you're using class tracking, you can say PPP loan. Okay. So from there, you can hit also edit. Oop, I got to hit yes first. Sorry. Make sure. And it comes up and brings up that particular thing. And now you would go up here, instead of checking, you would put PPP checking and then save. So you have the ability to change your class. And I'll do another one too for you, just kind of show you. Here's PG&E, which, well, that's a bill. Find another check. I don't think Bob's burger joint would be deductible. Well, here's another chin. So we're going to click on that one. I'm going to show you a different way. You can just click edit. And then we're going to switch this to PPP checking subaccount. And then from here, you're going to again click on your location. And here you're going to click on your class, PPP loan, save and close. Okay. So what it's doing is just reclassifying all of those. So if we run a report now, a custom report for profit and loss statement, it should now have increased all your automobile expenses up here. You now see it's 5214. So now it's added on to those numbers that we just did. Now you still have to do the transfer on the initial step that we did. You still have to do that transfer from your main account yeah. So you still have to do this transfer here that you did initially that showed checking account to the PPP for the exact amount. So if you do that, it'll transfer exactly the whole amount. If you haven't used it all, then it's still going to show a balance. But doing these individual transactions through the bank register, that will classify them in the right, correct location. If in fact that you have a separate bank account, again, you're just going to have to do the same thing, is you're just going to have to reclassify the bank account to the right bank account. But most likely, if you set up a new bank account, it's been like that since day one, and you just have to, and you probably have already been classifying by paying out of that account. So this usually applies more to individuals who dumped it into their personal account, and now they are wanting to set up the sub account. So is that making sense to everybody? Because that is pretty much the whole system that you have to do. That's all you have to do to keep track of it. So questions and answer, and probably the best thing to do for questions and answer, unless you have some, Cheryl, is just unmute yourself and ask the question, rather than making you type something.
I did have one, but I think he's dropped off the call. It was from Drew, and it was actually a little bit more going into the owner draw, and he's a single member LLC.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of his owner draws would be eligible to be forgiven?
Yeah, so that's 850 seconds of what you had mentioned. So that's not going to change no matter what. Should be done on a weekly. It should be done on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Don't just do your draw at one time. Other questions? I know there's no way in the world everybody got everything I said, or I'm just must be an incredible instructor. Which I know is not the case.
I don't know about that, Tom.
So if you got a question, just unmute yourself and speak up, or forever hold your peace.
There's another question here that says, we currently do not use the class or location option.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still need to use it for the PPP loan?
I would definitely use class, because that's the way you're going to be able to run these reports off to find out which, again, if you run these reports off, this way it's going to be able to show you in a class report exactly what was spent for the PPP loan. Because if you don't, there's no way to keep track of all these expenses except going into each individual vendor and running vendor reports, which you can do. I mean, there's certainly other ways you can do it, is you can just dump it and run vendor reports and cover the dates that you ran them. But if you just want a simple method to say, how much have I spent so far on this loan, I can do a simple profit and loss statement using class, and they'll tell me exactly the dollar amount that's spent. And that's the purpose of that. Other questions?
Hi.
Yes.
Question. So we spent about an hour and a half going over the forgiveness form last week. And so I think I've got a pretty good handle on it. But if Congress is expanding the period to 24 weeks, we haven't laid anybody off. We paid everybody their regular salaries. Seems to me that we could just include 100% of their salaries over that 24-week period, and we don't have to worry about any of the other expenses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the way I look at it, but you have to wait until, see, what's unknown right now is, and again, until the SBA releases stuff, you have the option of picking 8 weeks or 24 weeks as your period. That's the way it's written right now. I don't know if that's going to change. And the question is, well, if I use the money up after 12 weeks, can I go ahead and close it out and submit it to the bank?
Right.
I don't know. And that's a question I don't know. But yes, if it's extended out to 24 weeks, most businesses are probably going to use all of it, or they have the ability to use all of it for payroll during that time period. The only case would be,
since we haven't cut anybody's hours, then there shouldn't be any question about forgiveness.
And most people, it's probably going to be the case, because even if they haven't, they're probably going to bring them back before December, and they'll still be able to write it all off by December. So it's kind of like where it really affects the businesses if maybe you're in an industry that the business is being not allowed to open and may not be allowed to open until September. And maybe it's some sort of tourist industry or whatever, and their period is lessened, the 60% will help them because they still may have ongoing costs like marketing costs or rent and things like that. But for most businesses, you may have already. The other thing is you can use the 8-week period. So if you already comply within that 8-week period to everything and you've used the money up and you're still complying to even the new regulations of 60/40, you may want to just go ahead and file it to get it out of the way, because there's a waiting period between the bank, there's a waiting period at the SBA, and being able to get that finalized and get an answer so you can get it written off and be done with it.
The only concern that I had about that is I didn't want to be one of the first, forgivenesses, because who knows.
Might get audited. Yeah.
But like our first payment on our note isn't due until like November, so.
Yeah, 6 months. So, and that's totally up to you, but the question is whether or not you can, and you certainly can go ahead and comply to the 8-week, because you have 90 days, again, right now, you have 90 days to decide whether or not to submit it. To submit it after the end of the 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't submit it after 90 days of 8 weeks, you can certainly wait to the 24th week and wait another 90 days. Gotcha. What I'm hoping is that once somebody uses their funds up, they can go ahead and submit it. So if it's at 10, 12, 16 weeks, they can close the program and say, we're back at full staff, we used all our money, can we go ahead and submit it?
Gotcha, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And just a clarification, it's still, you have the 24 weeks to actually file for or use the money and file for forgiveness, but it doesn't change the forgiveness calculation for the 8 weeks, correct?
Yes, it's still supposed to be, well, no, because it still allows you to spend the money over a 24-week period. Mm-hmm. The only body it affects is going to be owners of the company or sole proprietors, because they're still going to be stuck with an $852 amount that they spend. They cannot spend more.
That was what I was meaning.
Yeah, they cannot spend more than that. If it's just employees, then you can pay them whatever you want. You can pay them bonuses, or you can just spread it out over the 24-week period. You're most likely going to use all the funds for payroll anyway. All right, other questions? Any more in the chat box or?
No.
So again, I'm recording this. If there's any more information, you can always go back to that. You're welcome, if you have more detailed questions, you're welcome to set up a session with me. If it's just a quick question, feel free just to drop us an email and we'll be glad to answer it for you. I'll also be sending out a list from this, just a little cheat sheet that I made up for you, and I'll send that also out as part of the follow through with this. So we still got 10 minutes left. I can keep talking or tell stories or whatever, or if we're good to go, we can call it quits. Any last chance to ask questions? All right. Well, thank y'all for joining me today, and I'm going to stop sharing, and we shall see you on the other side. And as soon as we find out more information about the changes to the new law, we may even do another seminar. We may just put out information from our website and send it out to you to let you know what the changes are. But we're going to be having to wait till the SBA releases their new guidelines. All right. Thank y'all and have a nice day.
Thank you.